Hey guys, I just wanted to come on here real quick and make this short video about some Torah study resources that we're going to be using with the CMEC. And I only have a few minutes, so that's why I have a cluttered disaster in the background of my desk. But this is what it looks like, so there you go. So this one I had shared about, but I wanted to show the inside a little bit more because I don't think I did that the last time. Give an example. So Job is what the Form 4 and 5 students will be studying this year, at least for term 1. Don't even ask me about term 2 and 3. So hold on a second. I wanted to show you an example of how this works because you can't really get one on the internet. So you have the verse straight from the Torah, and it then gives you the interpretation. So this is what your student is reading. I think I had likened it to oh gosh, I don't even know what the name is now, but there's a commentary that the CMEC recommends for the Christian interpretation of the sections of Genesis, Old Testament, which is the Old Testament, obviously. Smythe, that's what it is, J. Patterson Smythe. So I was looking for something that was kind of similar to that, but from a Jewish perspective, and we are Reform, so I think these are Reform. I definitely don't think they're Orthodox, but check within your comfort zone what you're looking for. But anyway, it's verse by verse, and then you have like an interpretation, a commentary. And so this is what I will be giving to my two high schoolers. One is a sophomore, one is a junior. And I will be following the pacing of the CMEC's guide. They have term guides and subject-specific guides as well if you become a member. So that's where we'll take our pacing from. But I just got this in. This is for my sophomore. I already had one for my junior. And I wanted to kind of give you guys a more in-depth look in case you're looking for these types of resources. And then here you can see this is what chapter 5. There's a discussion of good inclination and evil inclination, and then lashon hara, which is when you speak badly about someone else, and then amidah, which is about standing and praying. And so I feel like there's really a lot of good content in here, which is exactly what I was looking for my high schoolers to help scaffold their study of Torah. So these are made by these two authors. This is the publisher. I found this through Berman Publishing. They also carry this. There's one on Ruth, and there's a couple other ones. They don't have one for every book of the Torah, but this is a really good one. So I definitely wanted to share that. And then, so Form 4 and 5 will be doing this. Form 3 is doing Genesis, which is the same as Form 1 and 2. So this is kind of like, almost like a parsha type of a book. If you're not Jewish, a parsha is what section of the Torah is being read and discussed that week. So for example, each section has its own Hebrew name, and when someone becomes a bar bat mitzvah, they get that section. So for example, Bereshit is, I think, the first parsha of Genesis. And so I found this. It looks like it's a pretty new resource. It was really hard to find something like this that wasn't like a Christian messianic perspective, which of course those are great if you're a messianic Christian, but I was really looking for a Jewish perspective for my 8th grader. And so I think that this is going to work. And it has, the reviews had said it's good for a bar bat mitzvah to understand the Torah portion, or even for an adult. And so again, similar to the Job book, you have the Torah portion itself, and then you have some of the pull out sayings from here, which we'll talk about in another resource I'm going to share after this. But anyway, and this is the Hebrew with the vowels. And so there's the rest of the portion. Then you have the summary, and you have oral traditions here, and there's like photos. So it's a very interesting way of doing it. And then it talks about what it means to be Jewish Shabbat. So it's kind of like a whole lesson tied into that parsha. And so like what I would want my student to do is to study that section for the week and work through each of these sections, maybe one section per day, and use that for his study of Genesis. And I don't know if there are other versions of this particular material, but I will definitely look, because from what I've seen, looking at this before I filmed and right now, I really, really like the way that this is laid out. And I think it's going to be a great resource for us to use on a daily basis. So that is the book of Genesis, Exploring Deep Roots, a Jewish Perspective. And if you guys want links to anything, let me know. I'm trying to not be annoying with links because that's not my primary focus here. My primary focus here is to discover materials that work for our family and then share them in case they work for you guys. And then this is the Torah that we're using, which is just happens to be here. I'm not going to go into that again. That's in my other alternate studies of God video, which I will try to remember to link. And the last thing I wanted to share, so this is not a Jewish resource per se. This book was recommended by, what is his name? David Sloan, who's a Waldorf educator for decades, I believe. And I'm reading his book called Reaching Young People Through Literature, something like that. And he talks about 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade and different books that Waldorf educators use to meet the children where they are at developmentally. And this is one of the 10th grade books. And it is mentioned in the same section where they're talking about the Da Vinci Code, if you're familiar with that book. But apparently there is a main lesson taught in Waldorf schools in 10th grade where they examine the Bible as literature. And I hope this is not an offensive concept the way that I'm explaining it. But essentially they have students look at the Bible similar to how in 3rd grade they have them look at the Bible. And I think there may be other years where they look at specific sections of it and examine things kind of more from like an anthropological point of view rather than religious. And so this particular book talks about the parallels between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so, for example, one of the things that he had mentioned as an exercise for students was to go and look for different sayings from the Bible. So let there be light, for example, or I can't think of any other ones because I'm just anxious, I guess. But this talks about parallels between, for example, there's a symbol of fire, and there's an example of that in the Old Testament and the New Testament. What is different about that? What is similar about that? Same with symbolism of water. There's an analysis of the archetypes in the Old Testament and New Testament. There's an example of the storyline, a hero's arc, things like that. So I thought that this would be really interesting for my 10th grader to look at. And I don't know if in the Waldorf schools they give this to children or students or if the teacher teaches from it, but I have a reader and I think that she would like this. So that is why I got that. And again, this isn't really exactly like a knowledge of God resource. This is kind of more like a literature type approach. Let me see if I can find the table of contents. I am filming. Oh, I already did see that. So it's language, myth, metaphor, and typology. So I guess this might be more if you're like a secular homeschooler and you're looking for something where you read about the Bible, but you don't want to do it from a religious perspective, or if you are a looking at it from a religious perspective, but you want your older students to think about things more at arm's distance rather than how you may typically approach religion, like from an academic perspective, then this might be for you. I haven't looked at it at all. I just read about it in that book, like I said. And here you can see it's talking about Homer, so it's probably discussing the Odyssey. And there's Socrates, so you could see this is very academic. So this is what it had talked about in the Waldorf book. It says, in literature, there are two great organizing patterns. One is the natural cycle itself, the other, a final separation between an idealized and happy world and a horrifying or miserable one. Comedy movies in the general direction of the former, and traditionally closes in some such formula as they lived happily ever after. Tragedy moves in the opposite direction, and toward the complementary formula, count no man happy until he is dead. The moral effect of literature is normally bound up with its assumption that we prefer to identify ourselves with the happy world and detach ourselves from the wretched one. The record of history in itself does not indicate this. It indicates that man is quite as enthusiastic about living in hell as in heaven. To see misery as tragic, as a destroyed and perverted form of greatness and splendor, is a primary achievement of Greek literature. The Bible's vision of misery is ironic rather than tragic, but the same dialectical separation of the two worlds is quite as strongly marked. So this is this is an example of what you get here, and here it's talking more about the kingdom of God. This is the prior passage, and so there, it just, I don't know how to explain it. I haven't read it obviously, but I think that gives you kind of a sense of what it's about. We may also do the Da Vinci Code because my kids really liked National Treasure, and I feel like it's a very similar setup. But anyway, those are the 3 things I wanted to share with you guys. I will be sharing soon some other stuff that we're doing completely unrelated to this, but also for high school. So if you're looking for more high school resources, I guess hit the notification bell or just check your email if you're a subscriber. And I will continue to share how these books go, what we think of them, what my kids think of them. And like I said, I will link to the prior video I have made on this topic. And thanks for watching.